G'day, gang. It's James McCracken and Trav Crothers back in the helm, and of course, Captain and the Coach, episode number 8. And we're focusing today on social media. So, we know many a broker uses social media. The question is it a great use of your time? Is it producing the results, the impact, the outcomes that you want? So, Trav, when it comes to social media, let's start with this. What are the platforms that you choose to use, and why do you choose to use them? Meaning, is it because you're looking to build a personal brand? Is it because you've got a platform that's really just Trav when he's not at work versus Trav, the broker practice owner? So, what are your platforms, and for what purpose are you using them?
Yeah, so at the moment, currently probably Facebook would be ours. A lot of obviously the nexus between Facebook and Instagram is quite easy. We can post on both platforms simultaneously. So we do post on both. We've played a little bit with TikTok. Didn't probably have a great deal of success there. I know a lot of brokers have. That's probably more so that I didn't spend enough time on it, I think. I'm not saying that that platform doesn't have legs. I think it definitely has legs. I just don't think that we were positioned at the time to leverage that, which we'll probably look at in the future. But yeah, Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn is probably one that we don't spend a lot of time on. But yeah, we've run paid ads on Meta. We ran a new campaign starting yesterday, so we've had some success with that in the past. So yeah, they're probably my two at the moment. But not to
And
say
are
that
they
there's
specific? They're specific for business. Do you use any of those two platforms simultaneously for just keeping your family and friends up to date with, when you're going down to the gym or the go-kart track or whatever it is that you're doing when you're not necessarily writing loans or running the show?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm probably as guilty of it as anybody, right? It's like a highlight reel of your life. It's me going racing, or me on holidays, or me doing something cool, or so all my kids, like my kids are into bikes now, so there's heaps of footage of my kids on bikes or on skateboards and stuff like that. So it's a highlight reel of my life. It's not in reality. It's not my life every day. Like I'm not putting up there the 12-hour days or 15-hour days I do. But yeah, it is a combination of personal and business, and I guess the personal does flow into the business too. You'll see some of my posts where that might link back to the business, and it will generate some leads through my personal reach.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just looking at your Facebook profile here. So you've got, is that yourself on a dirt bike there in terms of your banner pick?
Yes, yes, that's me.
Okay. And you've got a combination of different content that you're sharing there in terms of the messaging. Your Insta profile, is it pretty similar in terms of how you present yourself, or are you presenting yourself as a mortgage broker? Because on that platform, when I look at it, I wouldn't know that you are a broker. So is that by choice that you're trying to keep that a little bit on the down low?
Yeah, yeah. Look, there's really been so we've sort of tried to keep our Facebook, like our business profiles and my personal profiles, like reasonably separated. Like there's my personal life and my business life. But as obviously as my profile in the industry grows, that we might start looking at a strategy to combine the both. But at the moment, it hasn't been front of mind. That's for sure.
Yeah, okay. Whereas for me, it definitely is. So I am making it pretty clear, hopefully, to people that I run a particular type of business and they can choose to engage with that or not. I'm cool either way. I certainly provide a lot of personal content on my platform of choice, which is Facebook. And I don't push much across to Instagram because I had a look at that some while back and I just decided, relative to what you need to do to make Insta work, I wasn't prepared to do that. And so I felt like it was it almost looked like it was going to be a full-time job, trying to pose and wear different clothes and look fantastic and make it seem as though I had all these things happening in my life. And that honestly was, in my opinion, too onerous for me to want to put in the effort to make that platform work. Whereas I can produce text-based posts on Facebook, which I feel I'm reasonably proficient at, and I can still put some reels on there. I can still put some posts on there, and those things will work again relative to what I want to do, which is engage and connect with an audience, and also share some content that's about who I am as a person when I'm not wearing the hat as broker, business coach, or business owner. So again, point being though is that it's understanding the platforms and being deliberate around how you use them. So
But
I know other people, for example, will use LinkedIn specific to the profile they're looking to build when they're wearing the hat as broker practice owner or as media personality, for example. But they'll use a very different platform when they're just trying to unwind and show people a little bit about their social life, such as Insta. So I think the point I'm trying to make here, Trav, is that for all of us, it's about knowing your audience, knowing the brand and profile you're looking to build or maintain, or the reputation you're looking to establish, and being consistent on said platform, but also having the outlet or the opportunity to potentially use a different platform or the same platform in a different way relative to who you are when you're not the business owner. And some people might even argue that point and say, well, can you try and pretend you're both, whereas they're all part of, who you are as a person. So there's probably an argument to be said for that as well.
You mentioned LinkedIn. Have you got a strategy around LinkedIn? Like I'm assuming like your business is essentially B2B, right? So LinkedIn, I don't know. I've had my team manage my LinkedIn profile at certain points, but it's not somewhere I focus. So I probably don't have a lot of insight here. I'm just wondering if it's something that you've had success with in the past.
Not particularly. In short, is I made efforts for years to connect, to post, to engage with people in conversations, etc. And when I looked at the amount of time we invested into that platform relative to the returns, it was extremely underwhelming in terms of the results. And so I just decided that we'll reallocate our focus and energy onto Facebook. Having said that, I think I did some things poorly on that platform, like I was using the free profile as opposed to a paid profile. So, think about from an algorithm point of view is when you're doing the free, that doesn't disseminate your messages as broadly as it could. There's other things that I know uh, some brokers did, and some other people in similar industries, such as you have these what you might, for lack of better terms, a posting pool. And what I mean by that is you might have 6 to 10 buddies when you're doing a post that they will simultaneously be notified of that post, and they will go onto that post and comment on it immediately, because that's essentially cheating the system, so that LinkedIn sees, oh, wow, this post is generating some significant engagement almost instantaneously. It must be worthwhile. Therefore, we will amplify this and share it to more people. And something about that just rubs me the wrong way, and maybe I just need to get over it and deal with the fact that that's the way the world is. But I know people who did terrible posts and unshare-worthy posts and incredibly monotonous content that was getting a prolific amount of views simply because they were, post pooling, so to speak, in terms of leveraging others and vice versa to create significant exposure when essentially the bulk of that was content that I thought was probably snooze worthy rather than share worthy. So, but that's a strategy that certainly some people have done, and I think it probably works on a number of platforms, not just on LinkedIn. I've just seen it specifically on LinkedIn that some people have done really well. By
Yeah.
the way, that could just be me being a little bit jealous of the fact that people were getting some substantially greater traction and cut through with content relative to my efforts. So maybe there's a side of me that's still a bit jaded around that, and I'll speak to my shrink about that at some other point and see if they can, run the hypnosis and get me out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so LinkedIn was not my platform of choice. Having said that, I am going to re-look at it because I feel like relative to our amount of followers, which is almost 10,000, I've essentially got some pretty good breadth and traction there, or at least an audience that I can communicate and engage with. And I'm probably doing myself a disservice and them a disservice by not giving the opportunity to share insights, perspectives, value that can hopefully contribute towards their their engagement, their insights, their decision-making success, as I've attempted to do on other platforms as well.
Hmm.
So let me ask you this, paid versus organic. So your paid is explicitly for lead gen, it sounds like. How often do you run paid ads? And do you do that under your personal profile, the Trav Crothers one on Facebook, or do you do it under a business profile such as 𝗀𝗍𝗃?
Yeah, so it's under the business profile. We ran it maybe 2 years ago. We did okay. Our ROAS was maybe sitting somewhere around two. So we were making money in
Meaning,
compare.
just for everyone's benefit out there, in case they're not sure, that really means that you're making $2 for every dollar that you spent
Yeah.
on the ads. But
So
that's probably an underwhelming result when you then take into account if you've got an external company manage the campaign and you're paying them as well, then there's that cost in addition to the ad spend, and then relative to what you're getting back, it may in fact be less than a 2 to 1 when you take into account all of the expenses that relate to running a campaign. Sorry, mate. I just thought I'd add that in for the betterment of everyone to consider.
No, so for those of you playing at home, ROAS is return on ad spend. So yes, I would say it was probably on the underwhelming side. It was paying for itself, but it was just a strategy that we ran and it went okay. We got some learnings out of it. We went away from it for a little bit, and now we've literally gone live last night on a new meta campaign with a new company, and we'll see how that goes. It's not something that I don't get super excited about it. Our strategy around marketing is essentially trying to reduce my key man risk in the business. The business Virtus is very reliant on me as a broker. So we've got our other brokers, but if we can build a really strong marketing strategy, it's not Travis Carruthers, it's the Virtus marketing strategy that is generating the volume. So we're doing a whole range of different things inside of Meta and outside of Meta. But yeah, so that's essentially where this is. I don't generally need any more Meta leads, but if I can build them
For the
out and I
betterment of the
can,
team
yeah,
collectively, is that this can help create opportunity and compound growth for the firm rather than just your personal volumes.
exactly.
I just want to
Exactly.
reiterate a couple of those points because I think that's really worth underscoring for the betterment of everyone who's listening. And this is what I see consistently is brokers who are in a similar but different situation to you, Trav, where they write good to great numbers, and yet they are also the key man or woman in their firm. And if they're wanting to build team and reliance on the system and the structure and the staffing rather than just their own personal output, is they absolutely need some mechanism in order to create that opportunity, in order for them to step back and allow the firm to function in their absence or without them writing the loans. And got to say that ads isn't the only way to do it, but it can be an effective way to do it. And I've definitely seen others who have set up their organizations to build out the brand and the business brand rather than the broker's personal brand in order to do exactly what you've just said, which is generate leads that where people come in looking to speak to somebody, not necessarily a particular individual, which tends to happen, of course, when you generate referrals. And whilst we still want referrals, and they're arguably still the best quality of lead that a broker will ever receive, this supplements that or complements that and provides that opportunity for growth and scale and consistency that isn't necessarily available solely through referrals.
Yes. Yeah, look, but Birdie Wealth down in Cronulla is probably a good example. Like you look at their social media, like very, very strong branding. Like their content is very, very good. And like I speak to Nathan about this, and it's not this lead gen cash cow. It's about building their brand. That they've won awards for their marketing campaigns. I find their marketing very strong, but they use it to attract staff.
Yeah.
They've got brokers in their business now that have been like, I see Birdie everywhere. I see you guys on socials. Like it's really like it's all around brand awareness. So it's hard. You can't measure those metrics. Like I imagine, I don't know the numbers, but I imagine that Nath would be spending a significant amount of money on his marketing, but he's not measuring it going, okay, I spent X in February and I got a return of Y. Like he's not thinking of it like that. So it's around Like his is more of a long play. It's like building a brand. Look at 𝐀𝐻𝐨𝐿𝐿 does it very well. Like 𝐀𝐻𝐨𝐿 is on every platform. I imagine he'll be on every platform. He's like when you hear him speak, he's most of his clients have heard of him before they even speak to him. They've seen him on some sort of social platform. So very like, but I imagine his budget for that would be significantly more than what myself would be spending on marketing on social media. So yeah, it's horses for courses, and there's no one size fits all with this.
Yeah, I agree. And you've nominated a couple of men there. So just in the spirit of trying to keep this a little bit balanced, is there's also some women out there who provide a great substance and content too. And I can think of a couple. I'm not going to name them, but where in a couple of instances they do a really fantastic job on Instagram, particularly. And that's not to suggest that one platform is more um, geared towards a particular agenda than another. It's simply for me to say that I know a couple of people that do an outstanding job on Instagram and where they build trust, advocacy, followership, engagement, responsiveness, and ultimately they generate inquiry and to some degree, to a prolific extent, that in no uncertain terms has contributed greatly to their success. And so, with that in mind, what I think we'll do is just transition a little bit towards my observations around what does or doesn't work as a framework for people to take away. Because I'm going to keep this real simple, Trav. Uh, and for everybody's context, about 7 or 8 years ago, I, at that stage, clearly had too much time on my hands because I literally, uh, and this is, I think it was before I had an offshore team member. I literally went through and looked at every single platform. Oh, actually, primarily the Facebook profiles of the then MPA Top 100. Now, to some degree, you can exclude what low market mortgage choice and Aussie home loans were doing because a lot of them were just relying on the head office content, and it was pretty mundane, and it was just more of a place filler type of content. Having said that, there was the odd broker within those platforms and categorically outside of those platforms who was being very deliberate around how they used their business pages. Now, bearing in mind, this is a little bit before business pages were deprioritized on the Facebook platform. So, in other words, these days, content on business pages gets deprioritized, and it's why I tell most people don't put a lot of time, energy, or effort into your organic content on a business profile because essentially you're going to get negative returns. Now, um, I often have people disagree with me around that, and they'll say, well, it works okay for me. Well, it may, but in the main, it would work a lot better if you did the same thing on your personal profile. Having said that, I think it also will work better when people don't buy external content as a place filler and they actually use their own organic, authentic content that tends to create a hell of a lot more engagement and responsiveness and is disproportionately more effective compared to the off the shelf pre ordered content. Now, having said that, the people who I notice in the main, and again, there's always exceptions to this, and so by all means, feel free to comment in any way, shape, or form, or send me an abusive email to disagree with what I'm about to say. But in the main, the four pillars around content are personal content, value-based content, which is to say stuff to do with finance, so educating people on things. And now, 7, 8 years ago, that content was based around the very generic things like what does LVR mean, what does LMI mean. I think the marketplace has matured a bit since then, and obviously a lot of consumers can find that content just about anywhere. But in any case, yeah, when I did my studies 4 years ago, Trav, on this, and I looked at what everyone was doing, it really revolved around four key pillars. So one of which was personal content. There wasn't as much of that on business, Facebook business pages back then, but there is a lot of that on personal accounts, Facebook personal accounts, on Instagram personal accounts, and to some degree, in a lesser degree, also on LinkedIn personal accounts. And bearing in mind back then, TikTok didn't exist. So I therefore didn't look at it. The second part was education-based content, which was prolific back then on a business profile page or a business page. It still is, but it just doesn't create much of a needle shifting activity within a business. The third one was proof. In other words, demonstrating that the broker had expertise and credibility. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to share Google reviews or rate my agent reviews when they come across. And the last one was invitation. So inviting people to something. We've got this free thing. Would you like it? We are running this, workshop in this place at this time. It's either an online one or a face-to-face one. Do you want to attend, etc. So they're the four pillars, Trav. Once again, personal content, education-based content, proof of credibility and reputation, and inviting people to take the next step in that journey. In the main, when people still do that stuff these days on a Facebook business page, it won't get much traction because, again, there's just not many people seeing the content in the first place. When I notice people who do this best, they tend, or the people who tend to get the best results, sorry, by the way, I feel like I'm hogging the show here, but is the people who focus primarily, not exclusively, but primarily on personal content, and where they can sometimes interweave that personal content with demonstrating their expertise. And so it's where they might do a personal post when they're in the office. So it shows that they're in the office, but it's still of a personal nature. And Instagram seems to be an extremely effective platform for doing that. Facebook personal profiles can be an effective platform for doing that. I know others who use LinkedIn do that extremely well. And also brokers who use TikTok, and some people can get substantially greater exposure on TikTok relative to the same content that would get substantially less exposure if using Facebook or Insta. And so again, relative to the efforts, the viewership on certain platforms will be through the roof. But yeah, people who focus almost exclusively on the education-based content, whilst that might demonstrate they have expertise, for a lot of the audience, they'll hit the snooze button on that real quick, because if they wanted to find out what LMI meant, what LVR meant, how to structure a loan, etc., maybe not structure a loan, but a lot of generic content can be found by doing a simple Google search, and it's not really a point of difference, whereas the individual, the person who's sharing the content, can be a point of difference, or at least that can be more relatable, which is why some of those people who do this content and do it well are producing substantially greater lead generation machines than peers who focus almost exclusively on education-based content, which does fill a void, but it doesn't shift the needle.
I'll give you an example of somebody who I think is probably doing this better than anyone I've ever seen, and it's outside our industry, but it's Simon Beard from Culture Kings. I don't know if do you know Simon Beard?
I know Culture Kings.
Yeah, so great story, right? Local Gold Coast guy started his store selling Dickie shorts at the Carrara markets. Exited his business at 600 million. That's $600 million, right? So now you look at his personal content, it's straight down the barrel. It's him sitting at his house. It's him like sitting in his gym, whatever the case may be. It's literally him picking up his phone and talking into his phone. And he hits those four pillars that you just mentioned earlier better than anyone I've ever seen. And like in some of the content I've watched with him, like in his Culture King days, like they were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to create one piece of content, right? This big wow factor. And he's like, the market's shifted from that. Now it's this authentic, it's down the barrel, which is what he does better than anyone. Like I imagine like his ad spend is probably high because he's doing certain things, but him actually filming the content, the cost is quite low. He's just very proficient at it. So it probably for those listeners that are looking to step into this space, you don't need to spend a huge amount of money. Yes, you probably need to at the start. You probably need to do a hell of a lot of recording and critiquing yourself and getting advice and polishing up the way that you deliver. But you don't need these big budgets and these, studios, and it's not required. Like if it's authentic and it's hitting those four pillars that you mentioned earlier, it can be very, very effective.
Mate, if it was required, then neither of us would be doing this podcast right now, because we'd both be in a studio, and I've done 170 plus podcasts and 0 of them have been in a studio. And in fact, the first 100 of them was literally, it was a very good microphone that plugged into my computer. but it was literally stacked on top of about 5 to 7 books, depending on which books I got. If I got the Bible, which actually I don't really have a
Yeah.
Bible handy, but I had thick books, most of which are in the cabinet behind me. I literally stacked the small microphone on top of that, and because it was a podcast, people couldn't see it anyway. All they heard
Yeah.
was what I was saying,
Uh, I
and so.
remember when I started filming content, I was filming off I think I bought it off Facebook. It was just popped up. It was a microphone that I think cost me about $11. I used it 3 times and then it went through the wash, and it probably sounded better after it went through the wash than it did before. So um, we've improved slightly since then, but still a long way to go. But yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more.
So, a couple of other things to consider here when it comes to socials is, like I've said, sometimes low budget, authentic content can be more effective. Uh, Although, actually, I said the word sometimes. Uh, I'm going to correct myself and say I would suggest most of the time that style of content is going to resonate and be more effective than the alternative. In some instances, when people have shown me their content and said, "What do you think?" The one suggestion I often have for them is remove your logo from the video or from the post, because when your logo's in there, it looks like it's a promotion, and instantaneously people will switch off. Or at least my perception is that they perceive that to be a promotion and therefore less interested, as opposed to it being seen as a genuine, legitimate intent of providing value or something of that sort. So, whilst we all love our respective logos, our audience generally couldn't care about them whatsoever. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice if our primary intent is to connect, engage, and ultimately to generate some inquiry. You'll find that including your logo in there is in most instances going to diminish that result rather than elevate that result. So that's probably something to consider. An iPhone, like I said, or a Samsung, or whichever the case, will do the trick just fine in terms of content. I'd say that a consistency of content probably matters more than the substance. I know some people who will try and create great content, but the inconsistency of it causes people to, I think, almost forget them. And a mentor of mine once said, the only person who's overly focused on the content we're producing is ourselves, and the marketplace isn't really paying that much attention, and you're probably a little bit too vain. And so you could produce, in some cases, the same content and repost it 3 months, 6 months, 12 months later, which incidentally I've done a bunch of times, and you still get good to great engagement with it, because the people who see it this time around were not the same people as last time, and vice versa. And so uh, you shouldn't be overly concerned as to who's paying attention, because in the main, not that many people are. And so, if that hopefully can be a little bit more liberating for people to take a step forward or embrace the ability to have a more of a servant mindset, and instead of being caught up in our own stuff, which causes us to maybe lean towards perfectionism, which might cause us to procrastinate, is have that mindset of, how do I be of value to others right now? And maybe you won't always nail it, but if you take that mindset more often, I think people can see you for what you're intending to be and embrace that. And likely you're going to be more consistent with your intent around creating content, whether it's to do with, or whichever the platforms, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Insta, or TikTok. Actually, the one I haven't acknowledged that I think has the ability to also be significant for brokers is YouTube as well. So that can be a great platform, and one that in the main is probably underutilized by the marketplace. So that's not to suggest everyone should go out there and do it. I think yeah, the one thing actually I noticed that most people don't have, Trav, is a strategy, and I think that can sometimes dilute the again the consistency. It can dilute the clarity, and it can cause them to not necessarily know what's the outcome that they're working towards. Whereas what you said earlier is a really good point to do with, well, we're running the ads not because I need them, but because I want to be able to create a system and a mechanism to allow the business to produce results outside of you getting repeat and referral business.
No, definitely. Yeah, it's yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but you're 100% right. It's consistency is definitely the key here. And I guess one of the key takeaways I just suggest with people is the easy decision and the right decision are very rarely the same. And this is like social media is definitely that would definitely fall in that category where what happens is like it would be easy to get some of these stock Canva posts and just change them and pump that, which we do, right? Well, I'm not saying we don't do them, but that the engagement in it is not high, right? But it's something that we've done. But like the hard decision is getting in front of the camera, is filming the content, is editing it, is like that, and being consistent with it, right? And that's where I think the people, it's a long game. The people that stay the course with this, the brokers that stay the course with this will see the most success. Like I'm a perfect example with TikTok, right? Jumped on TikTok, did maybe, I don't know, 10 or 12 TikToks. The business. It wasn't, I didn't stop because I didn't stop because I didn't see value or I didn't see it working. I stopped because there was just a massive influx of volume in the business at that particular time. And I was working way more than I should have. And things like marketing and content went out the window because I was just back on the tools.
Yeah.
And now you look at my TikTok, we have generated to date 0 leads. So I haven't even looked at my TikTok socially or for work for probably 6 months. But if we were to go down it again, like there's no point me going and doing another 12 videos. I need to
Oh,
go
I
do
get it.
50. I need to go do 50 and I need to be consistent and I need to, and if I'm not prepared to do that, so if you are going to, if whichever platform you're choosing, my suggestion would be you be strategic about it and you be consistent. You need, and don't expect it to turn a profit and the leads start flowing in after your first post.
Yeah, uh, absolutely. A couple of other suggestions I have in addition to that is know the outcome you're working toward, and whilst that outcome may change over a period of time, and and that goes back somewhat to the strategy and know the audience that you're looking to try and communicate and build a relationship with as well. So if you have that somewhat in your mind, then it might influence or guide the content you're creating. And again, whilst it might still be of a highly personal nature, which in the main tends to work quite well, there are other examples where uh, finance and property related content can produce really strong results, particularly in things like Facebook groups. I've seen that work really well. I have seen content work really well on LinkedIn, specific to examples of where brokers have delivered outstanding results. In some cases, I've seen people bringing in their family for uh, trying to use them to assist with social media engagement. Though there's a side of me, and this is often the case, and I'm not sure that it'll necessarily subside anytime soon, where I I feel like something that's really disingenuous, and yeah, I'm really skeptical of how some people go about it. So whilst they might put a post up and say, "Oh, this is what such and such is doing," and anyway, the lesson here is this. That something about some of those examples rub me the wrong way. And it might just be that the people that do them, I'm not entirely sure, but I think that's probably for each person to work out what they feel is authentic or genuine for them. And the reason I say that, by the way, is because I feel like the people who are doing that aren't being authentic or genuine whatsoever. I think that they are being a little bit conniving. But anyway, that's an opinion. And let's see. The other one takeaway from socials is you can build a prolific level of volume with doing organic content only. As Trav said, though, it will take a little bit of time to build the momentum and the engagement and the trust and the responsiveness from the audience. And in the main, it tends to be the case with paid advertising too. As much as there are firms out there that will promise, to plug you into their system, which can happen. The problem with that is that you're buying their system, and the moment you turn it off, the leads are gone. Whereas I would suggest that you ideally and preferably want your own system that you own, that you can turn on and off at your own discretion, rather than having to buy someone else's and be reliant on that because you're only getting the leads, as opposed to having the full mechanism that you can make most use of over a short to medium period of time, or even a longer period of time as well. So, uh, let me just apologize for anyone that might have been offended by my little complaining a moment ago. But that tends to be the way I am. Another way to say that is I don't just look at content, and maybe a lot of us don't, and think, oh, this is all very, genuine. I sometimes look at it and think, oh, why are they doing this, and what's the intent and the purpose behind it? Which I sometimes when I see that stuff, I feel like it's a disingenuous purpose.
I'll touch on that point quickly if I can. So I was actually at Topgolf with a couple of brokers last week, well, week before, and we were talking about some marketing strategies and some particular people in in our market that do marketing very, very well. And in my opinion, like I'm probably aligned with you on this, where I want to sleep at night. Um, I want to like that. I've got my business ethics that I adhere to, and it's different to everybody, right? And we're talking about some people that are doing successfully, which is quite gimmicky, and I'm not gonna like I don't know, like it just doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth what they were doing, right?
Can
And
I
we were
ask what
having
were they doing?
oh look, I probably don't want to comment too much, but I don't know. The strategy is very gimmicky. The content, I don't know. I just, yeah, there's some,
Is it a business that's promising home ownership in a really quick period of time?
um, yeah, I'm probably not gonna comment too much. It's just, yeah, there's just some stuff that I've seen. It's probably not one, there's not one, there's probably a couple that I've seen
Okay.
that just probably don't sit well with me.
Yeah.
And I'm not sitting there saying like those strategies are super effective, right? And
Yeah.
we were talking about if somebody like you look at my avatar for a Vertus client, right? It's property acquisitions, reasonably high net worth, high income, building like so the problem is I'm targeting more educated. The avatar of our client is not your first home buyer trying to bang out a home loan and pay it off in 5 years.
Yeah.
We're building like so for me to be gimmicky and for me to go down that line, I'm not going to resonate with that avatar of client. But the problem is without it being gimmicky, I don't get
It,
the reach and I don't get that. So
it
it's,
may not seem like it stands out.
yeah, exactly, right? So it's,
So it's a
so
fine
it,
balance between how do you produce content that your audience engages with, whether that's a more mature audience or not, and mature not in age, but mature in terms of their finance journey, and how do you make it, yeah, something that they will engage with that doesn't look and feel the same as everybody else's stuff,
yeah.
which I don't think is necessarily easy. And that's the part to do with the strategy. And that's why I think it's important to take a little bit of time before you start producing all of the content to contextualize why do you think you're going to have an impact and how are you planning to do that? Which, by the way, is the reason I chose to do this
Mm.
podcast as an example, is because I looked at this and thought, well, this is a different way to create value that isn't hopefully the same as what a lot of other suppliers are doing, and therefore is the opportunity to still be useful, do so in a different means, and uh, ideally and preferably still build a level of trust, engagement, responsiveness, et cetera, et cetera. So that was certainly part of my criteria for me deciding for us to do this. And,
Mm.
not to say that should be everyone's, but I do think that consideration needs to be taken into account before you pull the trigger and end up investing the time, energy, and effort. Because whilst we did say earlier that you want to be consistent and you do want to produce content, again, I think it also helps to know who you're serving, how are they going to engage and connect with you, and how, to some degree, are you potentially different or at the very least useful and relevant and meaningful for them. Not always different, but useful, relevant, meaningful.
Yeah, and you need to be able to like if you're working with a marketing company, you need to be able to communicate this with your marketing team. Like I've been guilty of it in the past, where I thought I was really clear on my communication on what the avatar of our what the client avatar looked like and what particular clients we were targeting. And then the leads start flowing through, and my marketing team are calling me, going, "Oh, Trav, it's amazing. We got 4 phone calls yesterday." I'm like, "Yeah, none of them, none of them were remotely a Vertus client." Like, and that they're excited. They're excited about the engagement. I'm like, I'm a mortgage broker, and like I've had people calling me looking to sell stocks or buying the Trove stocks. Like, and I'm going, "You guys have got it all wrong. Like, you're just absorbing my time." With leads that aren't going to go anywhere. So it's really important about being strategic about who your avatar is and making sure you're going after that particular client. Because if you're not, it's a complete waste of time, and all you're doing is filling up your calendar with meetings and with leads that aren't going to go anywhere.
So let me just extend on that. I'm sorry, this episode feels like it's going to go be bigger than Ben-Hur. Uh, a broking firm may have multiple avatars, which is to say multiple potential target audiences that they want to provide value and service to. So in the absence of having an avatar, or in the instance that they have multiple avatars, I think what's really important is that you're clear on your own value and how you contribute towards people's success. And you probably look at least elements of your own personal journey and your own story and the content you can produce uh, outside of just education and value-based content, because I think that will serve the audience really well. And again, I've seen multiple examples, and I can think of multiple females who do this exceptionally well, where they can provide value to different segments: mature investors, first home buyers, people looking to refinance, but they don't necessarily target a segment per se. What they are doing is making sure people can feel comfortable and confident in them, and the frequency of their face and their video appearing in the reels, appearing in the posts, and so forth, is building that equity of trust, and over a period of time will cause some people to reach out to them, which is why they generate leads. Even though they're not necessarily targeting a particular segment per se, they're still building a lot of engagement. So I think there's a couple of ways that you can approach that. Mind you, you wouldn't be posting just your personal content if you're doing paid stuff, because you want to be getting a quicker response out of it, which is obviously different to an organic based approach. Well, on that note, if you strenuously object to any of what Trav and I said, when we welcome your feedback. If you agree with some of what we said, we welcome your feedback. And either way, we hope this has been somewhat insightful for you. It might challenge you to take a step towards something that you may not necessarily feel comfortable with yet, but the more you do it, you can build a bit more of that capability and consistency around it. And if you're already doing it, hopefully this can help you refine and enhance the effectiveness of your existing efforts to produce the best possible return for the other time and energy, and sometimes money, that you're putting into these efforts, exactly as Trav and I are doing right now when we run this episode for you. So with that in mind, I hope this has been helpful. We'll catch you on the next episode and go from there. Bye for now.